In An Elephant Sitting Still, our characters venture to the edge of the city to find an eluded elephant, in the hopes of soothing their pain and sorrow. The elephant is a sign of hope, but do we believe that hope? And more importantly, does the director? There's a common trope that often comes attached to films featuring gloomy subject matter. Something I'll call the ambiguous sign of hope. That little silver lining at the end of stories, which don't exactly lift it up from its trenches, but it can leave just a trace of inspiration within the viewer, to use their own imagination, and perhaps even apply it to their own lives. I don't dislike this trope, and many of my favorite films contain endings that fall into this category. Yet I also can't help feel like it's sometimes attached as a cop-out. 99% of the time it comes packaged in films directly dealing with the conflict between good and evil in the world. Films that expound all the injustices, tragedies, and heartbreaks, and communicate to us that we live in a sad world. I think these films are important because, well, we do. I know this is something that nobody wants to hear. Even if they know it, they don't want to be reminded of it. But it's true. And that's something I care about. The truth. And yes, I know, there is good in the world too. But much like the cop-out usage some movies employ, why does every statement on the deplorable state of the world have to end with, "Oh, but there are good things too"? It's not like every happy movie ends with, "Oh, but there are bad things too." Why do they do that? To leave the viewer on a positive note? Because the producers are afraid of the film turning too many people away? Because they don't want people to kill themselves? Is it that last one? Because apparently we don't trust adults with the agency over their own lives. Whoa, Gordon, you shouldn't say that unless you've had those thoughts yourself. An Elephant Sitting Still is one of the best representations of misery I've seen on screen. Casted through multiple story threads, it depicts the universality of pain in everyone and the immutable pervasiveness of the plague. Kind or cruel, young or old, male or female, living in a modern world that has left humanity in the dust for some androgynous objective. Now, is it possible that someone might see the elephant as one of those aforementioned, tacked-on, uplifting endings? And can it be seen as disingenuous to those who are forlorn? It's said that hurt people, yet hurt people can also heal each other. But do our characters do that? No, instead they run away from their home to see an elephant. Not an amusing circus elephant. An elephant that sits there and does nothing, including solving our characters' problems. I believe An Elephant Sitting Still is depression personified. Depression might be a word swung around too often these days, yet considering the director's mental state, I believe that's an appropriate description of the film. And this is one of the reasons I love it, for how brutally honest it is. Amidst all the despair, who leaves us on a signal of hope? A flimsy signal of hope. One in which the titular elephant offers a triumphant sound of encouragement that our lives will get better. Who includes this, yet a few months later took his own life. Does he not believe his own conviction, his own art? Why would he imply hope but then not imply hope himself? Why would Stanley Kubrick make a film about an abuser while he himself was an abuser? Why would Fellini make a film for his wife and then cheat on her? Why would Chaplin make a film about love and then act so unloving off screen? Why is art made by liars? Tangent for another time. But this raises a fair point. What's the purpose of hope when people are hypocrites? When who commits suicide? When people don't help each other, but squander their fellow men instead? When hope feels like some imaginary elephant we made up in our heads just so we stop feeling hurt? I've been thinking a lot about Hubo lately. After watching this film again, I can't get him out of my mind. The fact that on the other side of the world, someone else my age shared the same feelings I did and exclaimed them so loudly and relentlessly gave me solace. But now he's gone. Someone I don't even know I now miss sorely. Most of my feelings are melancholic and sort of a bittersweet resonance with the man in our mutual existential struggles. Yet I can't help feeling a bit of tension and animosity in what happened. I feel bad for being mad at someone for taking their own life, but I can't help it. In fact, I'm more upset after watching this film and finding that connection with him than I was before. I can't help how I feel, and I feel almost deceived that someone would express to me the value of life, and then suddenly take their own. It's not that I blame him. I understand. I still love him, but I'm mad at him. With any suicide, people asked why Hubo took his own life, and the consensus seems to blame producers trying to manipulate the project, but that's not sufficient to me. The film is evidence that Hu had already been dealing with pain for some time now, yet even attributing sadness to his demise is still too simplistic. People don't become suicidal overnight, simply because of difficulties in their life. Yes, it can be a factor, but it's incredibly more complicated than that. It's not weakness or weariness, it's the lack of finding a purpose. It's the condition that even if you solve those impossible problems, you know you still wouldn't be happy. Nothing brings you joy anymore. The things and people who could once cheer you up no longer do. Complete, utter, pure, crushing, suffocating meaninglessness. Furthermore, it's not just hating the world, it's hating yourself. If I thought I was special, I would have confidence to go on. But I don't, because sometimes I absolutely hate the person I've become. I'm still just scratching the surface, but here's a way to think about it. It's not like depression and suicidal thoughts are the highest number on the sadness scale. It's more like a storm of every emotion raging madly, that the only feasible result is destruction. Suicide is an act of rebellion against life itself, going out on our own terms. It feels like control over our lives. It's an opposing act against the mantra of being positive, or that the world will get better, or that our lives will improve. We feel forced or even tricked into going on and ignoring our concerns. Suicide is more than just an end to pain. It's a statement. God, I feel like a hypocrite now. How selfish is it of us to feel animosity against someone who is in pain? Why? Because we miss them? Did we miss them enough to prevent their deaths? Did we care enough to pick up on the signs? Why do we care so much after they're gone but not while they're here? We talk about preventing suicide, but do we really want to? Do we take that effort and that energy to actually prevent it? To actually heal mental wounds and emotional scars? Is it wrong to tell somebody not to take their own life? After all, it's their choice. Are we going to be libertarian about this? Or empathetic? We ask them, we beg them to stay. But do we improve the world that they live in? Do we clean the waters that they're drowning in? Do we reach out and rescue them? One can drown no matter how clean the water is. Trying to rescue someone with the methods of the sane, it's ineffective in an incurable state of mental deterioration. It doesn't work. We are living in another world. Your methods will not suffice because it is something that you do not understand. And you struggle, and you try, and you may even mean well. You may even have your heart in it. But sometimes you really can't convince people. These people are living on another world, and your tools, your alien medicine, has no effect. Can I be mad at someone for feeling the way they feel? Is it not natural? Is it not human nature? But I can't help being mad, and I can't help remaining here, chained to this world, for some odd, inexplicable, intangible reason. That we insist on keeping them here, living out their day-to-day life in agony and despair, telling them that life is worth living, but it doesn't feel worth it. Empty statements and broken promises are the shattered glass that suicidal people walk on every day. Pushing them along half-heartedly, you want them out of your way for the moment, but you push them out forever. It doesn't help. It never has helped, and it never will. And I'm sick of living in a world, in a society, where the one thing that separates humans from any other animal, compassion, is something that we don't have time for. We don't have energy for. We think it less important than our measly, mundane routines and activities, that we can spend hours scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, but we don't feel like saving people. It's made me give up on compassion as well. I don't show it to people anymore. I don't show it to those who won't show it to me. And in doing so, I don't show it to people who need it. As much as I despise this culture we have cultivated, I cannot deny any longer that I am a part of it. It's affected me, and it's affected all of us. The cancer has spread too far, and it feels like there's no hope and no solution. The body known as the human race is dying and decaying, and there's no cure for this cancer. You don't understand. You don't want to help. You can't help. You don't understand. They're not thoughts. It's a constant state of mind. If you were to read the words on the inside of our minds, it would all be Greek. I can't emphasize this enough. There's very little you can do. On the other hand, there is a little you can do. I've been going to therapy on and off over the years, if you can believe that, and I'm currently off. One of my gripes with my past few therapists was that they never seemed to take what I was going through seriously. I would tell them unfortunate things that happened to me, or things I caused, mostly the latter. Things I screwed up on or failed at. I would tell them that I felt selfish, bitter, spiteful, and that I wasn't a good person. The response was often a very brisk one, along the lines of, "No, you are a good person. You're not afraid. Your life will get better." I'm not exaggerating much when I state this is all they would say. They rarely elaborate, and one-sentence responses are not convincing to somebody who has spent the majority of their life beating themselves up. What it sounds like to me, after I say those things, is that they're telling me, "No, you don't feel that way. That didn't happen to you. You're wrong." But I know me. I know my life. I know the way the world is. I know my experiences, and I know the truth. So why are they lying to me? I'm not a good person. I'm maybe not a bad person, but I'm not a good person either. My life may not be bad, but it's also not good. It's not somewhere in between. It's more like a mishmash of positive and negative. Like a Jackson Pollock painting, in which the good and the bad are mixed, mashed, and overlapped. Anyway, I couldn't take therapy anymore. I couldn't take therapists poorly diagnosing me and telling me I was wrong. Sometimes, in terms of my mental health and worldview, I just want to be told that I'm right. I honestly find it comforting to be told that yes, your feelings are valid. Yes, the world is a cruel place. Yes, it's perfectly understandable why you would feel that way, why anyone would feel that way. It helps me to know that I'm not completely crazy in a world where optimism feels like a meager patch over a scar. It's the reason people like sad songs when they're sad, not because it's telling them that the world isn't a sad place, but because they can find some understanding and develop a vicarious connection with the artist. When I was in high school, I listened to 9 Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral for the first time, and was completely whiplashed by the disturbing power of the album. I felt like I had been kicked in the head. The music was so raw, putrid, and direct that it made me nauseous, yet also resonated with me in a way I couldn't describe at the time. The album pulls no punches, and that's what solidified its impact as one of the most potently disruptive albums of all time. Can you imagine if Trent Reznor ended the final track with something like, "Chin up, sport, sunny days are ahead, pull yourself up by your bootstraps"? That would be a huge disservice to anyone who has gone through the experience described by the album, and me and many others would probably lose respect for it. People tend to not like traumatic art, but for every person who is disturbed, there's someone else who resonates with it and is comforted by it. This mindset isn't exclusive to therapists, as anyone with depression can tell you. Whenever you try and vent to ordinary people, they say things like, "But there are good things in your life. It's not so bad." Or worse statements like, "Get over it." They feign sympathy, but not enough to where they fully engage with your melancholy. Nobody actually wants to deal with it. They all choose to ignore it instead, both in other people and in themselves. Yet that's not healthy. That's not good at all. This is why relationships don't grow properly, because people don't communicate. This is why people fall back into anger, despondence, and addiction. Much like the film An Elephant Sitting Still supports, everyone feels pain, so there's no use in hiding. Sometimes I get the sense that our culture has become too reliant on mental health terms, such as depression, when it might not even apply. Don't get me wrong, clinical depression is very real and should be studied and treated, yet sometimes we tend to diagnose individuals on a whim simply for convenience. I don't know if you've noticed, but we live in a pretty ugly world. Being distraught over your life or the lives of others should be a natural response, and the latter even shows compassion. You'd be insane not to be bothered by the crimes committed against you and all of humanity. If you're dealing with issues, past and present, involving your job, family, abuse, mistreatment, poverty, and someone goes, "Oh, it must be a mental issue." Well, yeah, of course I am. What else would I be? What do you mean? Wow, you really broke the ice on that one, Freud. George Carlin has a bit about the use of soft language, on how soldiers in World War II used to be shell-shocked. Eventually the term went from shell-shocked to post-traumatic stress disorder, and I think Carlin does a great job at pointing out the absurdity here. Again, the intentions of the medical professionals were probably well-meaning, and even helpful, yet is there a side effect to this remedy? We've decided that if you're petrified by the horrors of war, there must be something wrong with you, not the entire military complex. Obviously, these experiences are damaging to one's mental health, yet sometimes this shifts the blame from systematic powers onto the person suffering, making them believe there's something wrong with them rather than the society they live in. What's that? War's too scary for you? Well, you must be mentally ill then. A contributing factor to many people's sorrows can be boiled down to the external or societal. Who does a great job at balancing both sources of agony, some of it coming from within, while others are mediated by an uncaring culture? The holidays just recently came, and I've never felt more drained and detached during this time. This is a time where you're almost made to feel guilty for not being happy. This mindset isn't exclusive to Christmas though, as this toxic positivity, I'll call it, happens all year around. It makes me sick, literally. I become sick having to hide my emotions because I know that nobody has the patience or capacity to understand, or the sympathy and interest in hearing me. Maybe I'm sad this time of year out of defiance, a statement that the holidays will not make anything better. We will all go back to our terrible jobs, go home to our unloving families, while homeless people starve and Palestinians are executed, and the deterioration of the planet slowly kills us all. While the holidays are a reminder of the good times, I stand as a reminder that bad things are occurring at this very moment, even during the happy times. I guess that's what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know if that's really what I'm doing. Is that a self-indulgent thing to say? I have no clue. That's not the core reason I do that either. I am genuinely unhappy, so... In my reviews, I like to end many of them with some form of inspirational message, often derived from the film. I do this because I want my writing to be more than just a regurgitating checklist of what I liked or disliked about a film. I want to extrapolate what the film has to offer and how we can apply its artistic statement to our own lives. It's given me a reputation for being an optimistic writer, which is odd because I don't really see myself as an optimistic person. Maybe I just write in defiant opposition to the world in favor of one that I want or wish could be. If you've known me or my content for a while, you know I'm not a dead serious person 24/7. I like comedy, I like to be silly, I like to be stupid, I like to make people laugh. I like to find joy in little moments and hope I can capture and communicate them, yet I feel as if this paints an unreliable picture of me. It's a little odd to think that there are some people out there who might have this image of me being an upbeat, carefree, fun-loving person, because I don't really feel like that's me at all, or at least not in full. People are much more complex than a character in a page or on a screen. I believe many of us hold multiple different brands of ourselves and play whatever role we feel like for the time being. I think it's healthy to be happy, silly, and even hopeful, but I also think it's healthy to be sad, fearful, and brooding too. It inspires contemplation and insight. There's a time for celebration and a time for mourning. There's negativity in the world, and there's negativity in us. All of us, individually. And I don't think it's healthy to ignore that. I don't think Hubo is ignoring that fact, as his film basically spends 4 hours reveling in that swampy reality. We all have a shadow, a dark part of ourselves that unfortunately can never be extinguished. It can only be maintained. Carl Jung wrote extensively on the shadow and human nature, and the way it relates to our psychosis. He stated that we shouldn't let our shadow control us, yet to ignore it is just as harmful. for it partakes in devious deeds when we don't pay attention to it. I've been fascinated with the concept of Buddhism throughout my life, which is why I applied a Buddhist lens to my initial review, although I still have much to learn. Eastern religions teach acceptance, which is why I don't consider myself a good or bad person. I don't consider the world to be a good or bad place. You know, it's the yin and the yang. But yin and yang doesn't just exemplify the good coexisting with the bad, but purports that the good cannot exist without the bad. Buddhism tells us that we must understand this, and we may not like it, but it is unchangeable. And what is unchangeable, we must learn to accept. By acceptance, I don't mean ignoring your shadow, for again, it can spiral out of control when unchecked. If we can, we should try and solve our problems. There's nothing wrong with that. We simply shouldn't be discouraged when things don't go our way. Whether we are furious at the initial problem, or frustrated that it's not being resolved. This is how pain is intertwined with desire. If we want to eliminate our suffering, we must eliminate our wants. If we want to eliminate fear, we must eliminate our attachments. If we want to be happy, we must eliminate our strive for happiness. This doesn't mean that a Buddhist will be perfect in reacting to their suffering, yet it's the discipline, knowing that the world is unfair and knowing that they are somber, and that grants them humility, wisdom, and control over their emotions. A Buddhist will never tell a fellow Buddhist to pull himself up by his bootstraps, because he would be perpetuating a lie. A lie that the world and the heart of his downtrodden companion is not so. Meditation techniques teach you to focus on the pain until it is reduced to its most insignificant form. The elephant is not some false sense of hope. It is like a ringing gong, attempting to refocus our character's directions. We need to stop suppressing our pain and instead accept it and resolve it. Everyone suffers, yet our four main characters are the only ones who take that first step. They take that sojourn to the elephant sitting still. As the film came to a close, I cried for a solid 20 minutes. The elephant trumpet followed by the memoriam card featuring Who completely squeezed my heart dry. And it felt good. It's strange to say, but I felt a sense of relief, being able to unleash this flood that's been building up inside me. In its brutal honesty, the film was saying, you are not alone. You are seen, you are heard, you are felt. Not that it's okay to be sad, but it's okay to be sad. Or to feel sad. A sad film being sad is brave. I don't care whether your art is happy or sad. I care if it's honest. A film bearing the suffering of the world may seem ugly to many, but I find value in the truth. In fact, I don't find these films ugly at all. I think they're beautiful. The cruelty of the world is truth, and truth is beauty. Initially, I really didn't want to end this on one of those faux hopeful notes that I hate so much, but I've been going through some changes since writing this. I've been reading some history and watching a lot of video essays, in which perhaps inspired me to make these videos. One in particular regaled the connection between misery and art in a grand historical lens. It recounted all the people who felt pain through every era of every time, of every tribe, nation, and tongue. And despite already claiming so, and already deriving this from the film An Elephant Sitting Still, this was the first time I really felt the universality of pain and sorrow. There's something about this pain that defines people, individuals, and movements. The fact that people always manage to bounce back, often through art. The way art can heal, the way it is a cry against life itself, a love letter and in condemnation to life simultaneously. I know this might sound like some hippy-dippy nonsense, but the Buddhists profess that we are all one, and I don't take that too literally. But after watching this essay, I can honestly say this was the first time I truly felt connected to the human race, to every human being that has ever walked the earth. Something of which I have had no interest in doing so before in my life. I valued my independence a little too much, and self-isolated myself for many, many years. But in that magical moment, I felt human. I felt connected. I felt like I was all in one, and one in all. I finally realized what the Buddhists meant. Before, I didn't want to accept this, because I always felt it diminished my individuality. But now that I've come to terms with that, I don't feel like that's the case at all. I just find it beautiful, pure and simple. Whether you want to call it depression, or pain, or misery, or I'll just give it a blanket term of sadness, it's a part of the human race. And as much as we try to avoid it, and maybe we should, honestly, I probably still will try to avoid it, yet it's a part of us, and it's inseparable from our lives, experiences, or even our personalities. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be happy, and I'm not trying to make anyone who is happy feel bad. But if you feel sad, let it out, express it. Be sad. Don't worry if you bother other people. Be honest, be sincere. Approach it, be bold, be brave, trudge through it. You don't even have to do it alone. And if you do it alone, you'll learn just how powerful you really are. Admit your sadness, embrace your sadness. Don't pretend it's not there, especially for people who don't care. Everyone is in pain, so why do we all pretend like we're not? Being sad doesn't feel good, but being honest and expressive about your sadness, there's something liberating in that. Strong and steadfast in your emotions and your integrity. Immovable, yet content, like a legendary elephant sitting still. Hi everyone, thank you for watching this video. Before you go, I feel like it's my responsibility to put out some resources. I don't think it's good to be suicidal or depressed, but I do think it's good to talk about it and be open about it. So if you're struggling with any of the things I'm going through, please try giving some of these centers a call. There's a few organizations I found, and I'll put some links in the description below. Some of them are catered to more niches, some of them are for kids and teens, some of them are for LGBT or trans people, others deal with crisis or sexual assault. And I firmly do believe you should try to look for something. Art, meditation, family, community. I don't want to accidentally pull a 13 Reasons Why here. I really don't want my video to have any negative effect on anybody. I just wanted to express myself and be open about all the things I was feeling, without any kind of boundaries. I was expressing myself in the way artists express themselves, and yeah, it can be very ugly and uncomfortable. After watching the video again, I realized that it is a pretty heavy topic, and I really don't want anybody to sink further into harm from watching my video. I don't know if I could live with that. Try getting organized in your community, find a movement or a cause to be a part of, to support. Maybe Buddhism sounds interesting to you. Try learning meditation or learning Eastern philosophy. Again, I'm far from an expert on this subject, but maybe that will help you. Maybe you have other religion in your life. Try returning to God. You can even try a therapist, and if that doesn't work, try talking to anybody. Any family member or friend that you have trust in. Reach out to loved ones. If they really care about you, they'll listen to you. I don't want my video to have any negative influence on anybody at all. That was not my intention. I just wanted to be open and honest about the things that I've gone through and the things that I've thought about. Oh, and in case anyone's wondering, I'm good now. I'm fine. I've actually been a lot happier lately. It's been a while since I recorded the original audio for this video, but since then I've actually been in a much more upbeat mood. Things have been going my way. It's a cycle, you know. It fluctuates. These are phases that come and go, and I think that's something important to remember. That, you know, you might go through a very tough, depressive time, but eventually you'll come out of the valley and onto a sunny peak. And again, that is why I encourage people to just stay and hang around, because your sorrow will not last forever. Your happiness and joy won't last forever either, but neither will your sorrow. And it's just a definite ending if you feel like taking a way out. But you know, I mean, life is terrible. I'm not gonna deny that. I spent the whole video saying that. Life is terrible, but I don't know. We're here, so just might as well just see what happens. I know I announced a long time ago that I would do a follow-up review for my An Elephant Sitting Still review, and yeah, sorry it took so long. This kind of transformed into a separate beast of its own. But I'm actually very satisfied with the way this turned out, and I would kind of like to make more videos like this. You know, not all of them as heavy as this one, but you know, maybe more experimental videos or alternative video essays, if you will. So yeah, hopefully I can get some of those put out. I'm really looking forward to making some more of those videos. Shout out to the channels like Zerbia and Kate Alexandra for making these incredible inspirational videos that really motivated me to make this video, and also help come to terms with my existence and my harmful thoughts. So big shout out to those guys, thank you so much. Anyway, thank you all for listening to me. God bless, and remember, take care of yourself.